what is it that makes somebody into a professional? Well, it's someone that's smart, okay, so you either you are or you aren't, but if you are, in order to get to be that professional person that's going to have that lifelong career in a job, you need to have the right education and the right experience. And we are short of IT professionals, which means something has gone wrong somewhere. There are huge changes that have now happened in the education system, and as careers advisors, I think you folks need to be aware of that so that you can understand more about the route through into the IT profession. Since I'm here for BCS, and that is the Chartered Institute for IT, there is a shameless plug for ourselves. So we are fantastic, and Microsoft say so, so it's true. Okay, so you're an IT professional. What do you do? Well, you do everything. This is data from OECD from last year, I think, or possibly the year before. Everything in the world now works because of IT. If you're having an MRI scan, it's actually the software that makes sure the MRI scanner works. If you're working in CERN and you're on the Large Hadron Collider, it's the IT software that makes sure the magnetic fields don't blow up Switzerland. If you're working in an accountancy firm, it's thanks to the IT software that you can charge your clients large sums of money for doing all of the things that you do. It's really, really important, and it's everywhere. You'll see from the slide there that the biggest sector for IT professionals these days is computer services. And if you think about it, pretty much everything that goes on in business now is done via the web and the internet. So the way in a company you create growth, you create new products, you do innovative things is through the internet, through the web. So not surprisingly, a lot of what you do is through IT services for your particular organisation, and you need the people to create those services for you. Who's got Angry Birds on their phone? I bet you all do, but you won't admit it. Okay. So that's not exactly the idea of an internet, of a computer service as such, but it is the idea of an internet product that somebody had to develop. So that sort of fits into that kind of computer services thing. Interestingly, if you look there at the financial banking service, it's only about 5% of people. Because very often people get the idea that an awful lot of IT people go into the city. And it is true, the city employs a huge number of people. I was chatting with a guy at Morgan Stanley the other week, and in the City of London, in their one building, which is a very big building, they have over 2,500 software developers. So there are a lot of people in the financial world, but there are a lot of people outside of that. If you can get into the IT profession, and that's a big if, you're going to have a good time, because if you look here at the unemployment rates, you'll see that actually you stay employed. This is again OECD data, so it covers the whole of the sort of developed world. But if you look over the period just about intersecting with the huge financial crisis we had in 2007, 2008, the unemployment rate, which is in blue for people in the IT world, or IT-intensive jobs, as the OECD calls them, is incredibly low compared with the rest of the employment sector. So that's really good news. And in the UK, there is a huge demand in all sorts of sexy and exciting areas and right across the economy as a whole for computer scientists. So computer scientists are slightly different from IT professionals in general. Computer scientists are people who can create new software, who write the software systems, who develop software suites and computational solutions to industrial problems, which is slightly different to some of the other roles you might have in the IT industry, because you don't necessarily just write software, you might also apply existing software solutions within a business context. And what's really interesting, so this is back from 2012, here we have Tech City, which is meant to be the UK's equivalent to sort of Silicon Valley. We have an entrepreneur saying, there just aren't enough computer scientists in the UK. And we need computer scientists. We don't need ICT trained people. Okay, now you folks are careers advisors. Has anybody suggested it would be a really good idea to do an ICT A-level to go to university to study computer science? Jolly good. I used to be an admissions tutor in a very large university. I won't say what it is because of what I'm about to say. But when we saw somebody who'd done an ICT A-level, we simply just ignored that one and looked to see what else they'd done. And that was for admissions to computer science degree course. This is a huge problem that we have had in the UK. We've focused hugely on the problem of making sure that everybody is digitally literate at school. That's absolutely fundamentally important. Even if you're not in the IT profession, whatever you're going to do, whatever walk of life you're going into, you've got to be digitally literate, or you just can't function anymore. in our modern digital 21st century world. But the thing we have not been doing is making sure that we have these computer scientists. So on the one hand, we're desperately short of computer scientists and IT professionals, and on the other hand, we're not getting them. And why is that? Well, I'll come to that in a moment. That's the part of the talk where I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's been going on in the education curriculum and the changes that we've made. But just to reinforce just how short we are of IT people at the moment, this was a survey done by Robert Half Professional Hiring, so they're people who hire people for you in the IT profession. And they went away and talked to a whole bunch of chief information officers. So in any large kind of corporation, you will have somebody called the CIO who's responsible for making sure that the information technology infrastructure in your company is delivering business value, is right for your company, and you've got the right people there who understand what the business needs are in terms of IT and how to deliver them. And it's really dreadful. 84% of these CIOs can't find or are struggling to find the right kind of IT professionals. And notice it says they can't find skilled IT professionals. This is the hard thing. It's no longer about finding someone who can throw a few lines of code together. Those jobs are gone. It's about finding someone who can create business value through the application or creation of IT systems. And when you look down there to see, what sort of organisations were struggling, 93% of the big corporates were struggling to get the right kind of people. And in London and the South East, although it's a bit better because London and the South East tends to attract the IT professionals, it's still 88% of the companies that are struggling to get IT people with the right skills. Okay, so what is it they're actually looking for when they say IT professional? Okay, so the first, there's only 3 points here. I've summarised actually, or paraphrased, a very large raft of information on what really makes an IT professional, but these are the 3 kind of core top-level things you're really looking for. First of all, it's somebody who actually has to know about computing. They've got to have the right technical background. They've got to understand the underlying principles, concepts, methods, and techniques that go with that. So that's kind of the science, the engineering, and the maths part of computing. But there's a lot more than that if you actually want to be an IT professional. You've got to actually be good at management, you've got to be good at collaboration, and you've got to be good at communication. Communication doesn't mean what I'm doing now, standing up and just talking to people while everyone else is sitting there trying to sort through their emails on their iPhone or play Angry Birds. It actually means working with people and making sure they understand what they need to do, and you've heard what they need to do, and you work collaboratively to get that done. The other thing that's really important for a professional now in the IT world is they have to understand about the globalisation of business. You no longer just work in your own country, even if you're in a relatively smallish company. I used to work for a telecoms company, okay, so that was a very large company, but specifications for systems would be done in Chicago, verification of systems would be done in where I worked in England, testing will be done in Brazil, other software development will be done in India and China, and then the phone would actually be manufactured possibly in Swindon or possibly not. And you have to understand what the complexities are of a globalised economy, a globalised supply chain, a globalised management structure, and all of that simply so you could do your part of developing the software or managing the software or implementing the software or rolling out the software or talking to people to make sure they had the right software to do their job. So those are the 3 things that actually make an IT professional. So if you're advising someone on what it is I need to do in order to get into the IT world, learning to write code, that's actually trivial. Anybody now can learn to write code. It's about understanding the science, the engineering, the mathematics that goes into software development. It's about understanding management of a large business, and it's about understanding the global nature of the IT world and the business world. Okay. It's very easy to assume that IT or studying computer science is so that you can become a little geek hidden in a little hole somewhere, grow a beard, eat lots of pizza, and one day go bald and become rather round. But it's not. I was absolutely delighted that this year the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was given away for people who were writing software. The Nobel Prize was for creating models that mirror real life and which have become crucial for most of the advances in chemistry today. And it's not just chemistry. If you look at one of the Royal Society reports from last year, it said I'm sure you already read it by now, but computer science is transforming both how science is done, but what science is done. The what, I think, is absolutely amazing. How science is done has been around for a while, but now, it's exemplified by that chemistry Nobel Prize. You can't do chemistry research now without the computer science stuff there to make it all possible. So for students and pupils going through school now, if they want to have a career in science or in engineering, they also need to understand computer science as well. I know a lot of physics departments, one of the first things they do to their students during the first year is they teach them how to write computer programs. Because an awful lot of what you're going to be doing later on, in terms of actually doing the practice of physics, is writing computer simulations to see how things work before you go away and then break the very expensive equipment that the university has. And if you look at the bottom of that slide there, we've got 100,000 graduates every year from science and engineering, and every single one of those in the modern scientific world needs to have a grounding in computing. And the great news, if you want to go into one of those degree options or one of those careers in science, is that in the UK there is an absolutely critical shortage of people with those sorts of STEM qualifications and STEM skills that are needed. This was the CBI survey from 2013, and it says that 47%, that's basically half of all our high-tech companies that do engineering or software can't find people that they need, that are highly skilled, that are the professionals. So how has this happened? Well, one of the problems that we've had in the UK is that way back in the late 90s, I think, it was decided that one of the most important things that needed to be done in the UK education system was to make sure everybody was digitally literate. And that's true. It is true. Everybody has got to be digitally literate. It's vitally important. But the focus on that meant we lost what we previously had, which was some sort of education around the science, engineering and mathematical aspects of computing and computer science. So we ended up with a whole bunch of ICT qualifications which were absolutely great for making people digitally literate, but were utterly useless for getting those people into the IT profession or helping them understand computer science. That has all changed. Before 2012 we had no GCSEs in computer science. That's appalling. Now we've got 4. Now this is stuff that you need to know as an advisor in schools, because all of this stuff is arriving now in schools and it's going to change over the next couple of years. So it's useful for you to understand that all of these things are progressing and advancing, and kids now can actually get a computing education. As of February 2013, the Department for Education has published its new statutory computing curriculum. Who's read it? Thought not. Right. It's a fun read. It's great. It's only 4 pages. It's different to the way things used to be done. It used to be that the curricula gave people a lot of advice about how to teach. The new approach is that the Department for Education specifies at a very high level what a subject is, and then it's all down to the schools to decide how to teach it and how to make it exciting and give you context for it. From now on, starting from September 2014, children from the age of 7 are going to be taught to program computers. Children from the age of 5 are going to be taught about what algorithms are. If you haven't heard the word algorithm before, it's not at all scary. Kids do it every day in the playground. When a couple of kids start selecting their football team or whatever it is in the playground, they'll go, well, I'll have you. Then the next person goes, well, I'll have you. Then the next one, I'll have you. Until they've divided up their friends into 2 teams. That's just an example of an algorithm. It's a set of instructions using the precise way to achieve a goal. That's what an algorithm is. Anyway, so this is all changing, right? So from age 5, children are going to be introduced into computing. What's more, we will now have some really high quality GCSE qualifications to go with computing. So there still will be ICT GCSEs in A-levels, and they're very useful in the terms of sort of digital literacy for people. But in terms of computer science, we're now going to have a whole raft of new qualifications at GCSE. I think there are 4 already that are going to be included in the EBAC school performance measure. And that means that the Department for Education regards them as of paramount importance in terms of the sort of qualifications that a child should do if they want a career in science or engineering or technology, as well as, of course, being extremely helpful to get you into the EBAC. So this is a bit of an aside, but one of the things you might be advising people on is whether they actually want to go into the teaching profession. Until September until September this year, there was no such thing as a computing teacher. They didn't actually exist in schools. We had ICT teachers who did a fantastic job, but they weren't doing computing and computer science. As of September, that you can no longer enrol on an ICT PGCE course. They've all gone. From now on, the only thing you can enrol on is a computer science PGCE course or a computing PGCE course. So that means we are gradually going to be introducing in schools a whole raft of new computing teachers who are the ones who are going to be teaching this GCSE. One of the nice things is that Michael Gove's announced that as of September this year, there are going to be a whole raft of £20,000 scholarships available for people who want to go into the computing teaching profession. So if you're talking to somebody who might be thinking about one day going into the teaching profession, it's useful to just be able to point out to them that at least for the next few years, they're not going to be steeped in yet more debt. They will have all of their costs covered and they will get a good scholarship, providing, of course, that they can meet our criteria for getting one of those scholarships, because we have to run it on behalf of the DFE. This is a really good deal because that £25,000 is tax-free. Now, introducing computing in schools is a big task. It's a huge step change from what we've had so far. So how are we going to make sure this actually works and happens? The reason I'm telling you folks about this, because although you aren't going to be teaching computing, you work with schools, you often talk to school teachers, you may well be talking to ICT teachers who are thinking to themselves, oh gosh, how am I going to do computing? Who do I call for help? Well, one of the people that they can call for help is us. We do a huge amount of work with a group called the Computing at School Group. They're there to support teachers. They're there to support ICT teachers and help them understand what they need to do in order to teach the new computing curriculum. One of the things that we're doing in partnership with the Computing at School Group, and funded by the nice people at the DFE, is create a network of teaching excellence in computer science. So schools that have the aspiration for introducing the new computing curriculum and being good at teaching computer science should join this network, where they will actually get support and help and continuous professional development for their teachers in helping them make the transition from an ICT teacher to a computing teacher. At the moment, it's about 770 schools, I think. And one of the great things about this is we've got support from lots and lots of the universities around the UK. And by that I mean the computer science departments in universities around the UK. And those little red dots there show you all the schools that are in it at the moment. The way we're providing help to the schools is we're recruiting a whole bunch of people called master teachers. These are people that are themselves teachers. They're going to be partnered up with the university computer science departments, and they're going to form local networks of schools where they go into those schools, they find out what the CPD needs are for their ICT teachers, they help put together computing courses with the local universities and then actually put them on for them. And that's going to be running for many, many years to come. It's only started this year, so at the moment it's a relatively small scale network, as we were just showing on the previous slide, but by 2016 we're anticipating we will have something like 400 master teachers, which between them will be able to run CPD courses for about 16,000 teachers a year. Now the point about all of this is we're making the transition from ICT to computing. And computing isn't just writing little bits of code. It is a subject discipline. It's like physics, it's like maths, it's like history. Okay? It's based on a body of knowledge, includes a set of techniques and methods. It's an actual way of thinking. And the thing about computing as a subject discipline is the things that you learn now in school or college are going to remain fairly constant. They will only change over decades, not months, whereas your smartphone will be redundant in the next 6 months and you'll have to go and pay Apple huge amounts of money for the next exciting thing to get the latest technology, whereas an academic discipline, computer science as a discipline, is something that's going to be valuable for you over a 30-year period. Now, computing is a radical change from what's gone on before, and it isn't necessarily for everybody. But one of the things I think is helpful for you to appreciate is just how much students and pupils can do themselves at school. For years and years we've had B-bots in primary schools. Has anybody got any children at primary schools themselves where they're playing with B-bots? No. Okay. But you can get 5-year-olds playing around with B-bots. They're programmable little robots where they start to learn about what an algorithm is and how to make it do stuff. So from the age of 5 we already know that children enjoy doing computing, and they're good at it, and they actually progress academically from doing it. So it's a jolly good thing to be introducing even at that age. If you look at what year 6 children can do, so by the time they got to the end of primary school, here's an example I just downloaded off the web of a school where they've had their year 6 children creating Pac-Man games using a programming language called Scratch. So that's quite a sophisticated computer program. It's an interactive computer game which allows you to do fun things on the screen, and you've got 10 and 11-year-old children who can do that. And then if you go on to look at what year 8s and year 9s can do now, they're actually perfectly capable of developing mobile phone apps. Might not be as sophisticated as Angry Birds, but they can do really quite good stuff. They can create virtual online pets. They can create paint packages so you can draw pictures on your mobile phone. And there's lots and lots of resources that they can download, and indeed school teachers can download to help them learn about how to do that stuff. So it's completely possible for our children to learn the core science, engineering and math skills they need to be good at computer science, which is the key academic subject they need if they want to go on and be IT professionals. But the thing that you need to remember if you're advising people is that being a professional in the IT world isn't just about the software side, the maths side, the science side. You've got to be good at understanding how businesses work. You've got to progress along the kind of management side. You've got to understand how large global corporations work as well, and you've got to understand how IT can create business value for those companies and how they can exploit IT for their own advantage, as well as do all the science and maths. So I've shamelessly plugged the new computing curriculum, which I apologise for, but because you are in schools, I think it's important that you know that these things are happening, and if you do know ICT teachers or computing teachers, you might want to tell them about this stuff and explain what's going on. So.